Good morning, human rights activists all over the world. Welcome back to Communication Workers of America, CWA Human Rights Our Power, a justice-filled hour of talk, solidarity, and worker power. Right here on KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. If you are visiting the beautiful city of Houston, you can take us home with you on KYOKradio.org. Thank you for joining us this morning on CWA Human Rights Our Power Radio Show. It's about us. That's right. It's about us. Working agreements, solidarity, living wages, worker power, and simply human rights. Honk your horns if you're supporting workers. That's right. Honk your horns if you support workers. We have a phenomenal show lineup with Micaiah Jones, Sir Reginald Small, and Timmy Wiley today. So don't you dare change that dial. Tune in this morning. We'll be talking about the devastation by Helene and how we can help our union siblings. Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Voter Buster of the Week, using social media to grow your base, spotlighting our own, and finally, our power trivia. We want to give a great big shout out to CWA District 213 for their leadership conference, which will be culminating today on October 3rd, 2024. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. Our union voices are ringing in every district from Alaska to Maine, Texas to Minnesota, Canada to Puerto Rico, because we don't play at CWA. Our union brothers, sisters, and siblings at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette have been outside for 20 months striking on the picket lines, and yet while they are out striking, they are still churning out the news with facts for you and me. Let's show our support to them by making sure we subscribe to unionprogress.com. That's unionprogress.com. Once you subscribe to this free publication, how about going over and donating to their fund at cwa.org/ppg-donate. And I keep hearing someone shout in the background, when we fight, we win. Our brothers, sisters, and siblings at Maximus are still fighting for a contract. And so we ask that you continue to support the workers of Maximus and their families at cwa.org/CCW Solidarity Fund. We have a letter in from District 3 Vice President, VP Richard Honeycutt, and it reads like this. Dear local leaders and officers, as you have all seen on the news, huge parts of the Southeast have been devastated by Hurricane Helene. Communications with and travel to many areas is still difficult, but our locals have been doing whatever possible to deliver supplies and provide immediate assistance to our members and retirees. And many of our members have been working long hours to help restore essential services. Today, I am requesting that locals and members across our district and nationally consider providing financial assistance to our CWA family members who were affected by the recent hurricanes. Our members who work at AT&T are already stretched thin after their month-long strike. Monetary donations can be made by checks addressed to the CWA District 3 Disaster Relief Fund and marked as Hurricane Relief. Let me say that one more time. CWA District 3 Disaster Relief Fund and marked as Hurricane Relief. You can also make donations to the District 3 Disaster Relief Fund online by going to cwa-union.org/D as in David 3 relief. Let me repeat that one more time. cwa-union.org/D3 relief. Check should be made out to D3 Disaster Relief Fund, CWA District 3, 4100 Perimeter Park South, Atlanta, Georgia, 30341. Let me give that one more time. CWA District 3, 4100 Perimeter Park South, Atlanta, Georgia, 30341. In unity, Richard Honeycutt, Vice President, District 3. You're tuned into KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us home with you on kyokradio.org. And Braden, in this strange climate that we're in right now, highlighting good ancestors is healing. Election season often compels us to forget about our good ancestors, whose blood, sweat, and tears paved the way for this very moment. We all have ancestors who have fought for this, and we need to make them proud. Standing on the right side of history, Anne Braden is a woman who was charged with overthrowing the government for equality. She was an American civil rights activist, journalist, and educator dedicated to the cause of racial equality. She and her husband bought a suburban house for an African-American couple during Jim Crow. White neighbors burned crosses and bombed the house during McCarthyism and was charged with sedition. She wrote and organized for the Southern Civil Rights Movement before violations became national news, and was among the nation's most outspoken white anti-racist activists, organizing across racial divides in environmental, women's, and anti-nuclear movements. Born in Louisville, Kentucky on July 28, 1924, and raised in segregated Anniston, Alabama, Braden grew up in a white middle-class family that accepted Southern racial mores wholeheartedly. A devout Episcopalian, Braden was bothered by racial segregation, but never questioned it until college years at Randolph-Macon Women's College in Lynchburg, Virginia. The experience that so affected her in 1946 was witnessing a march of Black veterans to the Birmingham courthouse, led by Louis Burnham of the Southern Negro Youth Congress, demanding the right to vote, with Braden covering the story as a reporter for the Birmingham News. After working on newspapers in Anniston and Birmingham, Alabama, Anne Braden returned to Kentucky as a youth adult to write for the Louisville Times. She became a supporter of the civil rights movement at a time when it was unpopular among Southern whites. Anne said one day, either you find a way to oppose the evil, or the evil becomes part of you, and you are part of it, and it winds itself around your soul like the arms of an octopus. If I did not oppose it, I was responsible for its sins. And while working at the Louisville Times, Anne met fellow newspaperman Carl Braden, a left-wing trade unionist. The couple married in 1948. Both were deeply involved in the civil rights cause and the subsequent social movements. It prompted from the 1960s to the 1970s. Then in 1948, Anne and Carl immersed themselves in Henry Wallace's run for the Progressive Party for the presidency. Soon after Wallace's defeat, they left mainstream journalism to apply their writing talents to the interracial left wing of the labor movement through the Farm and Equipment Workers Union, representing Louisville International Harvester employees. Even as the post-war labor movement splintered and grew less militant, civil rights causes heated up. And in 1950, Anne Braden spearheaded a hospital desegregation drive in Kentucky. She endured her first arrest in 1951 when she led a delegation of Southern white women organized by the Civil Rights Congress to Mississippi to protest the execution of Willie McGee, an African-American man convicted of the rape of a white woman. In 1954, Andrew and Charlotte Wade, an African-American couple who knew the Bradens through association, approached them with a proposal that would drastically alter all lives involved. Like many other Americans after World War II, the Wades wanted to buy a house in a suburban neighborhood. Because of Jim Crow housing practices, the Wades had been unsuccessful for months in their quest to purchase a home on their own. The Bradens, not wavering in their support for African-American civil rights, agreed to purchase the home for the Wades. On May 15, 1954, Wade and his wife spent their first night in their new home in Louisville suburb of Cheveley, Kentucky. Upon discovering the Black people had moved in, white neighbors burned a cross in front of their house, shot out windows, and condemned the Bradens for buying it on the Wade's behalf. The Wades moved in 2 days before the U.S. Supreme Court landmark condemnation of public schools racial segregation policy in Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas. 6 weeks later, amid constant community tensions, the Wades' new house was dynamited one evening while they were out. While Vernon Brown, an associate of the Wades and Bradens, was indicted in the bombing, the actual bombers were never sought nor brought to trial. McCarthyism affected the ordeal. Instead of addressing the segregationist violence, the investigators alleged that the Bradens and others helping the Wades were affiliated with the Communist Party and made the main subject of concern. White supremacists were pro-segregation at the time, charged that these alleged communists had engineered the bombing to provide a cause and fundraising opportunity, but this was never proven. Nonetheless, in October 1954, Ann and Carl Braden and 5 other whites were charged with sedition. After sensationalized trial, Carl Braden, the perceived ringleader, was convicted of sedition and sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. As Ann and the other defendants awaited a similar fate, Carl served 8 months but got out on a $40,000 bond after a U.S. Supreme Court decision, Pennsylvania versus Nelson in 1956, invalidated state sedition laws. All charges were dropped against Braden, but the Wades moved to the traditionally Black West Louisville. Blacklisted from local employment, the Bradens took jobs as field organizers for the Southern Conference Educational Fund, a small New Orleans-based civil rights organization whose mission was to solicit white Southern support for the beleaguered Southern civil rights movement. In the years before Southern civil rights violations made national news, the Bradens developed their own media, both through SCEF's monthly newspaper, The Southern Patriot, and through numerous pamphlets and press releases publicizing major civil rights campaigns. One of Ann's most famous quotes is, "You do have a choice. You don't have to be a part of the world of the lynchers. You can join the other America. There is another America." Thank you, Ann Braden, for fighting for human rights. You're tuned into KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you on KYOKradio.org. Up next is Breast Cancer Awareness Month with Micaiah Jones. Good morning, Micaiah.
Hey, hey, hey. Good morning, Errol. Good morning, KYOK radio listeners. So yes, it's October, and this month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And Breast Cancer Awareness Month can mean different things to different people. So for some people, it's a trigger. 31 days in the fall of pink ribbon reminders of a disease that forever changed them. For others, it's a chance to show their support for the more than 2 million women around the world who are diagnosed with the disease each year. So what is Breast Cancer Awareness Month? So it's an international health campaign that's again held every October. The month aims to promote screening and prevention of the disease, which affects 2.3 million women worldwide. Known best for its pink themed color, the month features a number of campaigns and programs conducted by different groups ranging from breast cancer advocacy organizations to local community organizations to major retailers. And it's aimed at supporting people diagnosed with breast cancer, including those with metastatic breast cancer, and educating people about breast cancer risk factors, encouraging women to go for regular breast cancer screening starting at age 40 or earlier, and depending on personal breast cancer risk, fundraising for breast cancer research. So in the month of October, there are also specific dates designed to raise awareness of specific groups within the breast cancer community. So there's Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, that's on October 13th. And there's also Men's Breast Cancer Awareness Week, which is October 17th through the 23rd. And Breast Cancer Awareness Month began back in 1985 as a week-long awareness campaign by the American Cancer Society in partnership with Imperial Chemical Industries, which was a British company that made tamoxifen. So the campaign eventually grew into a month-long event And then in 1992, the pink ribbon came into play after Alexandra Penny, who was one of Self Magazine's editors-in-chief, partnered with Estee Lauder and their vice president, who was a breast cancer survivor, and they decided to distribute pink ribbons after the magazine's second annual Breast Cancer Awareness Month issue. So no matter where you are on your health journey, a basic understanding of breast health and breast cancer is important. Whether you've been diagnosed with breast cancer, have a loved one in treatment, or just want to learn more about the disease, knowing the facts surrounding breast cancer can help you prioritize your breast health, support a loved one in their breast health journey, or feel prepared when faced with a difficult discussion or diagnosis. And knowing the signs and symptoms of breast cancer can make a world of difference between an early diagnosis and one that's too late. So while not all breast cancer causes symptoms, it's vital to know what to look for and how to look for it. So get your exams, talk to your doctors, and do your self-checks at home, because simply put, early detection saves lives. When caught in its earliest localized stages, the 5-year relative survival rate for breast cancer is 99%. But what is early detection? It means finding breast cancer at an early stage before it has a chance to spread and it's easier to treat. In 2024, more than 360,000 people will be diagnosed with breast cancer, and Black women in the United States are about 40% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women. Inequities in breast cancer treatments for under-resourced communities across the country, as well as the inequities in treatment between Black women and white women, is a huge issue that we need to bring attention to ASAP. And that's why it's so important to raise awareness. This is why I bring you these issues every week, because where there is a will, there is a way. And when there is a way, there is hope. And because of that, breast cancer death rates have declined 42% from 1989 to 2021 among women. And this progress is attributed to improvements in early detection, in treatments, and also advocacy. Advancements in early detection methods and support continue to increase the chances of survival. But early detection is only possible, again, through action. Through research, growing knowledge about breast cancer has led to new therapies and targeted treatments that improved outcomes for many people. It is research that brings hope to people facing this disease, especially those living with MBC or metastatic breast cancer, which is breast cancer that has spread beyond the breast to other parts of the body. So we need to ensure more treatment options are available for all people facing breast cancer, especially when treatments stop working. So this month and every month, raise awareness for those that are fighting silent and hidden battles that you don't know about, and do your best to stay healthy and to stay here. Back to you, Errol.
Thank you so much, Micaiah Jones, with Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You're listening to CWA Our Power on KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you on kyokradio.org. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. Turn the volume up just a little bit louder to hear the voter buster of the week with Timia Wiley. Good morning, Timia.
Good morning, Errol. Good morning, KYOK listeners. Good morning, Saints and Aints. This morning, we're going to do a little bit of we're going to put a spin on the Union Buster of the week, and we're going to talk about voting strategies, voting plans, myths about voter registration. And I just want to lay it out there and lay the framework for your awareness about voting, that there are entities trying to prevent you from voting. So before we dive in, we're going to start with developing a voting strategy and how it can help you make informed decisions and maximize your impact. Here are some steps to consider. Research your candidates and issues. Look into the candidates' platforms, past performances, and the specific issues on the ballot. Use reliable sources and nonpartisan websites for information. Number 2, understand local and state races. Sometimes local elections have a bigger impact on your community than federal ones. Research local candidates and propositions. Who's propositioning them? Where are they getting their funding from? Identify your priorities. Determine which issues are most important to you. Will it be healthcare, education, climate change, or all three? And see how candidates align with your values. We want you to engage with your community. Discuss issues with family, friends, and community members to gain different perspectives. Community forums or town halls can also be a helpful resource for knowing what's going on in your area. Consider voting methods. Decide whether you'll vote in person, by mail, or use early voting. Make a plan that fits your schedule. Know your voting rights. Familiarize yourself with your rights as a voter and the specific regulations in your area, including ID requirements and deadlines. Participate in voter outreach. If you feel strongly about certain issues or candidates, consider getting involved in campaigns or voter registration efforts. Evaluate the impact of your vote. Think about how your vote can influence not just the outcome, but also future elections and policies. And number 9, you're going to want to stay informed after voting. This is huge, y'all. Just because you vote doesn't mean you don't need to stay, you need to tune out. Once you vote, you want to continue to follow the outcomes and the performance of elected officials to hold them accountable. Creating a voting plan can help ensure that you're prepared and can cast your vote effectively. How many times have we been to the polls and there are people's names on the ballot that we have no idea who they are? This is why creating your voting plan is very crucial. So here's a simple guide to help you formulate your plan. Number 1, you want to research and prepare, identify elections, note the upcoming elections. You want to know your local, your state, and your federal elections. You want to research your candidates. Look into their platforms, look into any ballot measures or propositions, because those will also end up on the ballot. You may be voting for extra money for the school system. You may be voting on a raise for teachers. You want to be educated about that stuff. Number 2, make sure you check your registration status. You want to confirm registration. Make sure you are registered to vote. Check your status online at your state's election office website and register if necessary. If you're not registered, it's no need to be embarrassed. Just go ahead and register yourself and check around with you. See if other people are registered. Make sure that they're registered to vote. Number 3, you want to choose your voting method. In-person voting, decide if you vote on election day or during early voting, or of course, mail-in voting. If you prefer to vote by mail, request your ballot ahead of time and check all the deadlines. You want to set a voting date. So mark your calendar and put an alarm on it if you're like me. If voting in person, choose a specific date and time. If voting by mail, plan to fill out and send your ballot a few days before the deadline. Plan your transportation. In-person logistics. If you're voting in person, plan how you'll get to the polling place. Consider transportation options and parking. Number 6, review voting materials. Obtain a sample ballot and review it. This will help you feel more prepared on voting day. And by getting that sample ballot, it also gives you a chance to see who's on the ballot that you may not have heard of, so you'll know who to vote for. You also want to make sure you bring your necessary ID. Check if your state requires identification and make sure to bring it. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Number 7, you want to vote. We got to make sure we vote. So stay informed, keep up with any last minute changes regarding polling locations or voting rules. You're going to want to follow up if you voted by mail. Track your ballot if your state offers that service to ensure it was received and counted. You want to engage others, share your plan. Don't keep it to yourself. Encourage friends and family to take their own voting plans and consider discussing candidates and issues together. By having a clear voting plan, you'll feel more confident and empowered when it's time to cast your vote. Now we're going to run down a few myths about voting and voting registration. You must register to vote in every election. That is a myth. Once you're registered, you typically remain registered as long as you continue to vote in elections and keep your information up to date. However, some states do require re-registration if you move or change your last name. Myth number 2, voter registration is only necessary for first-time voters. All voters need to register, regardless of whether they have voted in previous elections, changed an address, or name require re-registration. Myth number 3, you cannot register to vote if you have a criminal record. The fact is, laws vary by state, but many individuals with felony convictions allow them to register to vote after serving their sentence, including parole and probation. So quite a few states, I won't say that again, once you have completed your sentence, your parole, your probation, what have you, you are eligible to vote. That's why it's good to know your voting rights in your area. Myth number 4, voter registration is the same as being automatically registered to vote. The fact is, voter registration typically requires a separate process. Some states have automatic registration systems, but not all do. So you definitely want to check your voter registration. I cannot emphasize that enough. You can only register to vote on election day. Most states have a registration period before election day, and some allow registration by mail or online. However, some states do allow same-day registration. Myth number 6, it's too late to register to vote just before an election. The fact is, registration deadlines vary by state, and some states allow same-day registration, enabling you to register and vote on the same day. Myth number 7, you don't need to register if you vote by mail. The fact is, you still need to be registered to vote by mail. Mail-in voting requires registration in most states. And our final myth, your vote doesn't matter, so there's no point in registering. The fact is, every vote counts, and local elections can be decided by a small number of votes. Registered voters have the power to influence incomes and outcomes. And I'm going to say that again. Registered voters have the power to influence incomes and outcomes. There's so much that's on stake when it comes to voting. If you don't vote, I'm just going to say you are our union buster of the week, the month, the year, and the decade. We're not going to tell you who to vote for, but your vote matters and it counts. And there are entities and organizations that would love nothing more than you not to vote. And Errol, that's it. I'm gonna get off my soapbox and I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
All right, say it with me. My vote matters. That's right. Your vote matters. So make sure you get out and vote. And if you're not registered, please make sure you go out and register today. Check your voter registration as well, because you never know what's going on. You are tuned into the Communication Workers of America Human Rights Hour, Power, a justice-filled hour of talk, solidarity, and worker power, right here on KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. And don't forget, if you're on the go, you can take us with you on kyokradio.org. Up next, we have Reginald Small with Spotlighting Our Own. Good morning, Reginald Small.
Good morning, Errol Minor, and good morning to our KYOK radio listeners. I am and I remain Reginald Small, CWA activist and civil rights and equity chairperson. Definitely my thoughts and my prayers go out to the folks impacted by the devastation of Hurricane Helene. In spite of it all, it is my sincere hope that you all can see the sun peeking through the clouds as a sign of hope. We are indeed down to a very important and my favorite part of this program, spotlighting one of our own CWA activists. Today, we are highlighting and spotlighting Women's Committee member Tay Atkins from District 7. Tay is proud to be living a life filled with purpose and love. She is a young activist in CWA and recently appointed to the CWA National Women's Committee earlier this year. Tay is Executive Vice President for CWA Local 7050 in Mesa, Arizona, where she is a mental health awareness champion in marginalized communities, fighting for children's nutrition and wellness in schools. She is responsible for spearheading various events and initiatives within District 7, yielding outcomes of which she and her district are particularly proud. She is engaged with young individuals through public speaking and finds fulfillment in actively participating alongside them within the community and being an example and mentor. Tay has been participative in Arizona's Martin Luther King Jr. celebrations and actively promotes the CWA gender justice curriculum. She promotes voter registration drives and is very active in her community and in her district. Tay has built a wonderful family with her partner of 14 years and is responsible for nurturing 5 bright and talented children who remain her inspiration. Tay is the example of a human rights activist, and we are very, very, very happy to spotlight her for her continued activism on today. She joins us today on our show, and we welcome her. So if you KYOK listeners would welcome Tay Atkins by simply turning up that dial and listening to what she has to say. Back to you, Errol Minor, as we welcome Tay Atkins to our show today.
All right. Thank you so much, Reginald Small. We're going to kick this right on off, and we're going to ask Tay to give us an update on what's been going on in District 7.
So District 7 is actively working on voter registration and get out the vote. That is our main focus right now. It is an important year. So we are focused and we are out door knocking and canvassing right now.
All right, cool. So let's get right on into it. What has really inspired you to focus on social media as a tool for union participation and human rights outreach?
So social media is very easy to use in some cases, but it's about the connections. So we are so used to knocking on one door at a time. We're able to post things on social media and within minutes reach thousands of people, young members, older people. So social media is a perfect platform for entertainment, I would say. So I think that it's a perfect platform to talk about issues that we're facing as far as workers and human rights violation. It's the best way to get things out in the forefront.
So you would agree that it's a good opportunity to tell someone's story. And so let me ask this: what is can you elaborate on the importance of telling your story and engaging the audiences on social media?
It's the perfect place to get out and tell your story. Social media is where you can be authentic without judgment. They gravitate when you are your true self. So when you tell your story, it inspires others to tell their story. Something in your normal day that may have affected you, you may post on social media and inspire someone else to talk about something that they've gone through. Whether it's in place, a human rights violation, it brings in different audiences, but the most important thing is it brings in people with the same causes or the same issues. So storytelling is very important on social media. It's okay to, give a post, some little inspirational post here and there, but tell your story. Use your platform to tell your story.
Okay, and what social media platforms do you find the most effective for reaching a specific audience, and why?
I would say that each social media platform has their own purpose. I would say the most effective would be Facebook. Facebook was one of the first social medias that was really known, whether, again, younger people or our older generation. Everyone comes to social media to connect with family, to connect with friends or workers. You have different groups where you can participate in and join for liked causes. You have different groups that are for human rights and things like that. But then you have other platforms that you need to know how to use, like X. You use X for real-time events. When you're out doing mobilization, you can use X to connect with other people who are out doing the same things. When you're doing podcasts, X is also good for podcasts. One of my favorites is Instagram. I'm a visual person. I love to see the action. So when you get on Instagram, if you are a person who's more into posting about what you're doing, showing action, then Instagram would be for you. So
Mhm.
each one has its different reason to use, is what I'll say.
Okay. Now, let me ask this because I know sometimes you'll find people just go live for no reason and they're just holding the camera, walking through the park or something like that. So, how do you decide what issues or stories should be highlighted on your social media?
It's it's about you. What's important to you? What do you want to get out for people to see? I think that live videos are important when you're out doing actions, like you said, walking through the park. For me and the work that I do, getting out on the strike line or human rights events or things like that. Those are actions that need to be live. You need to engage with people in real time. Um, I think that I it's hard to pick which things should be highlighted. But I think that human rights issues that are affecting all of us, labor laws, things like that should be highlighted for workers. Education should be highlighted for the school system. So it just depends on where you're at. But I do think that I love going live. I'm a person who's always live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I one of the things that I love to do, and maybe one day I'll do this, I'll go live when I'm sitting by the lake or by the river. Uh because it's tranquil, and I know there are other individuals that like tranquility when they're in nature. Now, one of the things we have that we kind of discussed a little bit earlier before we went live was that there was a human rights conference. So can you share an example of a successful social media campaign with union participation as well as human rights?
Yes. So first, I want to say being a part of the Human Rights Conference was amazing. I loved every part of the CWA Human Rights Conference. It was something you would have had to be there to see. And what I would like to say is that social media had a big influence in that. It was easy to get the message out that we were having a human rights conference. People were able to scan on QR codes that were posted. I seen people doing hashtag CWA Human Rights Conference. So it was easy to get the message out. And it actually doubled our participation in the Human Rights Conference. I heard that it was one of the largest ones that we've had so far. And again, I'm excited to be a person who was a part of that conference.
And one of the things that I saw with our human rights conference was there was a lot of hashtags floating around on social media. So, will you explain to our listening audience what role the hashtags play in the outreach efforts, and how do you choose which ones to use?
Hashtags are so important to connect with people like yourself. We use hashtags like Union Strong or CWA Human Rights. Those connect us with other people who have taken pictures or done some work. It's important to know how to use a hashtag. When you are on social media, if you post your hashtag and it's not a public post, then I can't connect to you. I can't see that hashtag because it's private. When you post a hashtag, if you're looking to connect with other people by clicking on that hashtag or touching that hashtag, it has to be a public post, but you can connect with various different groups with hashtags. If you take out the CWA and just put in human rights, you find other activists, you find other pages who are fighting the same issues and causes. Hashtags are the highlight of social media, is what I would say. It's
Mhm.
the easiest way to connect with someone.
Well, let me ask this: we count I kind of led into this, spoke about it about live videos. How does a live video impact whatever you're doing? And if you're trying to build a community around your cause, how does that help?
People like to see you not just talk about it, they want to see you doing what you're asking them to do. So live videos, again, it shows the action. It helps people engage with you in real time. Like you said, when you're sitting in the park and you want that peace of mind, there's going to be someone who's sitting there like, I want to do what Errol's doing, and it's just simply off of looking at you do it on social media. You be your authentic self. It encourages other people to get on there as well and do the same thing. And it's important that we do that when we're doing actions out in the field, when we're doing community work, when we're coming to conferences or actions or rallies. I want to see your live videos. I want to be on there asking you questions. Hey, what's going on? Like I said, it's real-time engagement. You might get someone who's actually like, hey, I'm close. I can come to this event. It's real-time engagement. Again, I'm a person always live because I like to interact with my family who are far. So I'm always live.
Okay, let me ask you this: how do you begin to collaborate with others and with influencers or organizations to amplify your message?
You can't be scared. If you don't ask, then you don't know if it can happen. There's influencers who they agree wholeheartedly with your message and they will share a post just because you asked. But people are so afraid of connecting with someone who has 100,000 followers because I don't know, in social media world that must mean famous or something. But those are the kind of people you want to engage with. They're real people just like you. And like I said, they understand your message. I've been able to contact influencers, and that's how I build my platform. I get followers based off of a message that I shared. They may share my post, and someone takes my post directly and comes looks me up, and now they want to know, what is this about? What's going on? It's important to engage with those big numbers, those 100,000 followers. Send them messages for if you have important causes. Ask them what their interests are and things like that. Collabing with other groups as far as union as well, it helps us have allies when we're out fighting, or it helps them have allies when they're out fighting. It brings us all together in real time. Like I said, it's not like sending out a letter and you having to wait 7 days. I can make a post and see it in 3 minutes, and I need your help. Hash.
Right. So, what about grassroots organizations? How can they effectively use social media to reach a broader audience?
You need to get someone who is able to use social media the correct way. And when I say the correct way, I mean you need to be able to um, grow the audience that has the same cause. So for us, our CWA, we have our human rights page that is coming up. This is our member, our different that is I'm sorry, that is now up. We have our different district pages that we follow, and I noticed that they're doing the same thing. So they already have their pages up with lots of followers, and all we're doing is sharing the message, and it's growing.
Mhm.
Said it's not the same. When you used to have to put your flyers on the door and all that, you put yourself on social media and share your message. Continuously share your message. They give you tips on social media now too on how to engage. If your message is not getting out there, they'll tell you, hey, you've only had this many views. Can we share this in a story or something like that? Social media also trains you on how to get the notice you need.
Yeah, and I once we get off the air, I need help on how to monetize mine. Okay, so
I can tell you.
all right, but let me ask this: what advice would you give to someone looking to start a social media campaign focused on human rights or labor issues?
Create a hashtag. Make sure that everyone knows what hashtag you will be using. Um, Create an event to show what's going on, again, in real time, what's going on, when I would need your participation, how I would need help. We just recently posted some phone banking information. We were able to create an event, and people can share it. So if you are looking to get an event or something out, I would say make the page, don't hesitate, and share the events. Just start sharing, start following other people, follow back. post hashtag share. We just talked about too, also, Errol, before we got online, they have the new thing on Facebook where if you have 100,000 followers and you put at follower or at highlight, it will tag your whole friend group. It will tag anyone who's following you. And I think that is also important for big organizations who have lots of followers. They need to start utilizing that, because then your message is in my notification.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask this. Now, this one just came to me. A lot of times when we're trying to do things with social media, especially on Facebook, there are copyright infringement things. Once we use music, then it goes to another. So how do you work with that or work around that?
A lot of the times you have to put, I do not own rights to this music. That's how you work around that. As long as you have that on the post as well, then you're able to use the music. You just have to identify that you don't have copyrights to that music, or if it's a picture, you don't have rights to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's really simple. I like to use a lot of music when I do reels and things like that. And if you don't put that at the top, they'll mute your video. So they'll tell you you're getting too much notice on this. If you're monetized, like you said, then they'll actually tell you, hey, we will not be counting this because you don't own rights to this music and you didn't put that up. So
Okay. Now, one of the things that I don't care how good social media is and how well we get our message out, somebody, some way, somewhere is going to be offended. So, how do you handle misinformation or negative comments that may arise on your social media platforms?
when it comes to misinformation, I will engage, and it's all about correcting someone or giving them the right information. I'm normally not confrontational, so I don't argue back. I just want to give you the facts. When you run your social media page, that's something I'll tell you as well. You don't want to run it off of emotions. You don't want to get really, really, really upset with people for things that they don't know. So when it comes to misinformation, I always correct people. When it comes to negativity or offensive comments, I don't engage in those. That's not what our
Mm-hmm.
platform is used for. We're fighting for issues that matter in our communities. Why would I come back and be what I'm fighting against? I
Mm-hmm.
don't engage in negative comments. You can have whatever emotion or feeling you would like. Depending on how negative it is, it may just be removed. Like I said, so I
Right.
engage in that. But misinformation, that's what social media is for us to correct things, for us to give correct information.
So, what trends do you see shaping the future of social media engagement in union and human rights advocacy?
I see a lot of unions using social media and they're actually getting their messages out. I see in the future that more unions and affiliates, everyone is basically encouraging their people to get a social media page. They want you to have social media. They don't just want you to have the page with the name on it anymore. They want you to actually engage. Start posting real issues, labor issues, things about labor laws in your state. I think that social media is going to be great for what we're doing right now. That's how
Mm-hmm.
we about all of the things that were going on before, as far as police brutality, things where the school system, how children are being treated in the school. We learned that through social media. We at one time we didn't, it was just whatever they put on the TV. Now we have our
Mm-hmm.
platforms where we can speak about things where no one's able to shut us up or shut us down. And I think that's important, especially in the work that we do in unions. People are scared of what we're doing sometimes. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
that we use social media to let everyone know that we're together. We got this.
Mm-hmm. And I know we've been going for a while, and my producers already told me to keep this going just a little bit longer because this is good information for our listening audience. So, all of our listening audience, we will come back to our power trivia on next week, but we're going to keep this conversation going with Ms. Tay Atkins today. So, I want to find out something from you, Tay. What drives your passion for union participation and human rights advocacy?
What drives my passion is my upbringing. I've been a child who had to witness some of these things firsthand, and I watched my mother actually stand on the line and fight the good fight in a time where it was scary. I feel like now I can be a voice without having to be afraid because I watch someone else kind of go through it. I look at my children and I want them to see that they have a strong mom who can talk about injustice, who can speak about things that I know are wrong without fear of judgment. I
Mm-hmm.
love what I do when it comes to human rights advocacy. I love talking to our young generation and letting them know the importance of voting. I love talking to our young generation and reminding them that this is their world. This is their world. We right now we're molding, but this is their world. That they are the future. They are the ones
Mm-hmm.
step up. So as a mother who had a child young, my job is to structure and mold them to do the right thing in the future, which encourages me to do that with some children who don't have a me or a you or a Tamia or a Mikeal or a Reginald. So that's what encourages me to do the work that I do. I know someone needs it.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I heard someone say one day was every 100 years the earth is replenished with new people. Even though the earth is replenished with new people every 100 years, we have to leave it in a better place for future generations. So how do you envision the role of social media involving in the fight for workers' rights and human dignity?
Because on social media, again, media, they block out real life sometimes. Our real life is not always on media, and again, social media will be our children's outlet. That's how
Mm-hmm.
things that people don't see on the news first and then they see it a month later. It's because these kids are resilient. They are posting it on social media. They will get in these groups and they will have all their friends posted, and there's kids in other states who these kids have never met who are going through the same issues. I feel like social media will mold the future if it is used correctly. We have to educate
Mm-hmm.
our kids on how to use it. This is not something you use for bullying. This is not something you use to cause issue. You use your social media platform to talk about things that are important to you. Talk about issues that they don't talk about on the news. Talk about things that are happening to you and your community that are overlooked because it doesn't look good on the news. Is what I'll say. We have our own platform now. We don't need
Mm-hmm.
the news. We don't need that anymore.
Okay, and I really think that even with District 3 going on strike, social media played a big uh, uh, part in getting the word out because even the national news agencies were not picking it up like they should have.
Well, Errol,
Yeah.
that's because it's not something they want to highlight. Workers on strike. You don't want to highlight that, Errol, but that's why we have our own platforms now. We are our own voice, and that's why everyone who has a human rights issues, they need to have social media. We can spread the word quick. We can spread the word without the news outlets. We actually, through social media, make that news outlets want to now come talk to us because so many people
Right.
about our issues. So
Right. We had a lot of individuals reaching out to us for interviews and everything. Tay, our hour has far been spent. We thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today and coming on the CWA Human Rights Hour Power. Thank you so much. Tay Atkins, give it up for everybody. You're listening to Communication Workers of America, CWA Human Rights Hour Power, Justice-Filled Hour of Talk, Solidarity, and Worker Power, right here on KYOK 1140 AM, the all-new 106.5 FM. And if you're on the go, you can take us with you on KYOK Radio. .org. As we come down to the final minutes of the show, our union brothers, sisters, and siblings at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette have been outside for 20 months, on the picket lines. And yet, while they're striking, they're still turning out the news with facts for you and me. Let's show our support to them by making sure we subscribe to unionprogress.com. You may donate to their strike fund at cwa.org/PPG-donate. And I just heard someone shout, we are one. That's right, we are one. Our brothers, sisters, and siblings at Maximus are still fighting for a contract. And since you're in a giving spirit, journey on over to cwa.org/CCW Solidarity Fund. And one more thing, don't forget about those that have been affected by the hurricane. If you want to give, you may also give to them at cwa-union.org/D3 Relief. An hour is not long enough to be with you, and a week is too long to be away from you. You have been tuned into the CWA Human Rights Justice Hour Power broadcast. I hope something you heard today has inspired you to take action toward creating positive change in the world. Every person has the power to make a difference, no matter how small. And by working together, we can change and create a world where human rights are respected and valued. So I encourage each of you in the listening audience to reflect on your role in promoting human rights to affect change in your communities and beyond. Know that you are not alone in your quest for a more just and equitable world. When faced with injustice, it can be easy to lose hope and give up. But remember, justice may be slow like the truth, but when it finally comes, it will stand. Until next Thursday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, right here on KYOK 1140 a.m. and the all-new 106.5 FM. Thank you once again, Tay Atkins, Micaiah Jones, Reginald Small, and Timia Wiley. Remember, there is power in the vote. See you next week.
You have been tuned to the CWA Civil Rights Talk Show, an hour of power. I am the legendary KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. Stay tuned next Thursday, Civil Rights Talk Show, host Errol Minor.